Good morning, Shivi. Welcome to Curious Times special edition for Teachers' Day. So, for our users and viewers who are listening to this interview or viewing it, Shivi is an educator, she's a teacher, and she's now an education entrepreneur. She's also the founder of Summer Pebbles, and she has been working in this field for 20 plus years now. And I really thank her for taking out the time to for this interview for the Teachers' Day special annual edition of Curious Times. And she's here. So what we will do is we will ask Shibi to take us through her journey of how she started her career and her education journey and her teacher journey. And then we will also talk about the leap that we are talking about in our special edition of Teachers' Day. Yeah, Shivi, over to you.
Thank you, Deepti. It's an honor to be here in Talking to Curious Time. I have always believed in the work that you all have been doing. So I consider it as a privilege to come and talk to you, especially on this occasion where you celebrate Teachers' Day and teachers. So my journey as a teacher started way back in 2003. And as like most of the teachers says that they knew that they wanted to be teachers, I would say that teaching chose me. I really didn't choose teaching, but teaching chose me. I was a computer science educator. My background is I've done my master's from BITS in information and technology, and I was working in a corporate sector when I got married and I had to shift to Kerala, and that's when I started my teaching career. But then once I joined the teaching career, somehow I got connected to what I was doing, and I grew as an educator over a period of time. I've made many mistakes. I've learned from all those lessons. But one thing that I always cherished on day one and today is the love and the acceptance that you get from your students and the way they connect to you long after they pass out from your campus and they remember you forever. So that's one thing that I close very, hold close to my heart. So, and then since I went into teaching and all that, I suddenly thought of starting a platform where the children can just be themselves and, realize their innate potential. So back 3 years, when we were having the summer holiday, my husband just asked me, why don't we do a summer camp for, children? And I said, that's too soon. We were towards the end of March and April, summer holidays were about to start in Kerala. But then he insisted and I said, okay, let me just check out what can be done. And that's how Summer Pebbles started. And the Summer Pebbles journey has been extremely good and full of learning experiences for me as a host and for my children who join in. There are children from grade, age 6 to age 18 who join the Summer Pebbles camp, which is a 3-day camp where resource persons are from across industries. There are people who teach them dance, there are people who teach them yoga, there are people who talk to them about different professions. Then there is food and art and craft, but most of it, and the most important factor of Summer Pebble is that we believe that each one of us is gifted and has the potential. It's just that we need to realize that and we need to accept as we are. So the badge that you can see on my chest is from Summer Pebbles. It says, I can and I will. Watch me. Now, what does that badge signifies? It's a challenge that I throw to myself, and each one who's wearing that badge throws to himself or herself, saying that, whenever someone tells us that, okay, this is not possible, or you cannot do this, or you yourself tell yourself, okay, this is not possible, then you throw a challenge at yourself and say, I can and I will. You better watch me. So that is the journey of Summer Pebbles. And since the pandemic, I have taken the role of being an IT admin of my school, and I have helped my school onboard the online teaching learning process. And it has been a roller coaster ride for both me, my school, and all the stakeholders. But then I think finally we are settling down to this way of teaching and learning. So I think that's all about my teaching learning career as it per se.
Right, right. Thank you. Wonderful, Shibi. It's a, I would say this is like, destined journey, but I think your journey is good for students. So it definitely is a good journey to, moving from WITS to teaching to operating something like Summer Pebbles. I think it's just that it's very, very good for the students when people from that kind of background come in and they bring a different perspective altogether. So, and I also congratulate that you are the, you've kind of transitioned your organization or institute to the new format of education, and that's our topic of the day also. It is called the leap. This leap is from the chalkboards to the keyboards, and I will put forth a few questions, so that would be kind of will how take it through in terms of understanding this. Now, as your institute and as yourself as the head of IT administration, how did you start your online journey? When did you start it? Like, you have academic cycle and the pandemic happening in March. So how did you start it and transition your teaching and faculty and the students to this?
Yeah, I think in March this pandemic came unannounced and took us all back, and then we had to shut down everything. We had not yet conducted our term or the final examination, so that was also one challenge for us. But then we ventured into a new area and we had our final exams for all grades using Google Forms. And that went like that. The school was closed for summer holidays, but the work continued. Me and a set of teachers, we started exploring different platforms that could be used for online teaching learning purpose. And in April, we started for grade 10 and 12 with the most comfortable platform for teachers, which was WhatsApp. So the teachers had their videos recorded, and they used to come live during that time, and they used to take a very structured kind of a class using WhatsApp. But then we realized, WhatsApp is not a very, it's not a learning platform. It's just one short-term thing that we were doing at that present. So we started off with WhatsApp, and we worked through different platforms. And that's how we actually began our journey in way back in April.
Okay, so as of now, what are the platforms that you use? Because now the students are back to their full curriculum. The summer break is over. Do you use Zoom, Google, YouTube, WhatsApp, Microsoft Team, Telegram? What are the platforms that, or a combination of all of that, to put forth your communication to children and equally receive communication for them?
Okay, now I said that in April we were working on different platforms. So we
Yeah.
actually first tried out Google with the Google Meet and the Google Classroom features, and then we ventured into Zoom. We realized that Zoom was not for educational purpose, and then slowly we got into a platform called Microsoft Teams, and that is the platform that at present the school is using. And it's an extremely wonderful journey with Microsoft Teams, because it covers the overall aspect that is required for a very smooth teaching learning process. So we have our classes recorded. Each class is recorded also. So in case if a child misses out on a particular day, on a particular session, the child can always go back and see the recorded version and get back to the respective teacher regarding any doubts that we have. So I think Microsoft Teams is a wonderful platform for teaching learning. We have our assessments, assignments, everything over Microsoft Teams platform. We had done a rigorous training for teachers. We had handholded our parents, and we had handholded our students before we actually started off with Microsoft Teams platform. We started only in second week of June because my school was never in a hurry to get started with the academic goals during this pandemic. We were more concerned whether the teachers are well equipped, whether they know how to use this platform properly, whether the parents are comfortable, which would be the timings that would be comfortable for the parents. The academic council had come out with a beautiful timetable starting from, you know, prep 1 as LKG and to grade 12. For prep 1 to grade 4, we have weekly only twice, just half an hour to 45 minutes one day, so 2 days like that. 5 to 8 would have around 2 periods a day, that's for 5 days a week. And 9 to 12 has actually 3 periods a week, which is a 40 to 45 minute session. And that's how. So we had a very strong training for teachers. We had a hand holding for parents. We checked out for younger children. The parents wanted to be with them. So we had evening times given allotted for the smaller classes so that the parents can sit with the children while they are having their classes. So that's how we decided on and you know, mobile data or internet connectivity. As you know, we are not everybody has got a Wi-Fi connection, and not everybody has a dedicated, you know, internet connection at home. Most of us actually use our mobile hotspot to attend classes, to take classes. So Microsoft Teams was also one platform which used lesser data compared to the other platform. So we zeroed into Microsoft platform because it was friendly, it consumed less data, and you know, it was pocket friendly to you know, invest in Microsoft Teams for your organization. So I think for teaching and learning, Microsoft Teams has worked so far in a wonderful way.
Great. And so you're using Microsoft and in combination with WhatsApp also, because you could be communicating short messages from WhatsApp, right? I'm assuming, like parent information, etc., right?
Right.
So, do you find there was any kind of resistance to change from an offline to online within the organization through the parent group or through the students? Like, you know, there's so many stakeholders. So, did you face, because it's a change and it's a change which is like happened like this, and people were not prepared. So you know, you've seen the policy frameworks. There are policies that come, 5 years of debate happens, and here is something which has to change in 5 days, right? So
Right.
did you get some kind of resistance to change?
No, surprisingly, the teachers, parent, and student, the, you know, the stakeholders of this particular platform were extremely supportive. We, you know, as I mentioned, we went into different platforms to check out which one would work best. So we had some private providers who came with their packages. So we tried out that for a while, and then we said, oh, this won't work. So we shifted to another. So teachers were very supportive, and they were willing to take up the challenge. They were willing to spare the time to learn. So teachers were very supportive. Parents initially had this fear that, oh, okay, how my child is going to cope up with this online mode of teaching and learning, whether it will be effective. But then when we handholded them, when we provided them with the background information that they required to know, they were quite comfortable with this mode of teaching, and it was not a burden. Like, we have siblings in different classes, so we had arranged our timetable in such a way that there was no clash. Like, each class was allotted different timings, because there are homes that share devices, that share mobile hotspot, and we didn't want that to be a problem for our parent community. So we decided to go with a timetable which is not very aggressive, but at the same time gives each child a learning opportunity. Just like, I wouldn't say just like how we used to do it in our offline classes. That's absolutely not possible, but definitely in a little more effective way in the online platform, where each child would get a scheduled time without clashing with other classes. So I think they were very cooperative. All three of them, the teachers, parents, and students, were extremely cooperative about this new change that the pandemic had brought.
Right. And whose transition was the fastest? Like, who was like seamless and quick in terms of transitioning from an offline to an online, between parents, teachers, administration, school students, I think I would say.
I didn't get that question clearly, Deepti.
So, so everybody was transitioning. Whose was the fastest, you believe? Like who?
Okay, I don't think we need to guess that, but I think the student community was the fastest to adapt to this new mode of learning. Having said and done everything, they are much more adaptable, and they are more, they would just blend into that change that was coming their way, and they were comfortable using the devices. They knew technology, so that wasn't much of a hindrance. So students were quite the response that we got from students were quite encouraging. So I think the students were the most quickly adaptable community that we had among the teachers and the parents. I would say after students, yes, teachers. Uh, but yes, I wouldn't belittle the efforts that the teachers made in adapting to this new way of teaching. That was incredible, and hats off to each and every teacher. Somebody who has never even switched on a laptop or a desktop to work with it, and now suddenly going online and taking classes for their children. That change has been incredible. So that also is there.
Right, right, right. Where I guess very much that children are coming like, they're like ice and water. So, one more. So, what do you think the impact has been on learning outcomes of children? Is it like same? Is it better, or not there? Like what has been, because we always talk about the learning outcomes at the end of each sort of quarter or month. Then what's been that?
Deepti, I don't think we can actually categorize that into same, better, or worse. It's somewhere in the middle of these, this learning outcomes that when we talk about, or when we say how effective is online teaching, I would not like to believe anybody who says it's more than 50 to 60%, because online teaching can never be 100% effective or even 80 to 90% effective. Okay, and the learning outcomes have changed for each class, for each age group. We have done a shuffling of learning outcomes depending upon this pandemic and depending upon their grade levels. Like all the whole of the school community can decide till grade 8 what they would like to learn, what are the important skills or important learning outcomes that they would like to give their children till grade 8. So I think each school has worked very closely on that and are coming with learning outcomes that are age appropriate and class appropriate. But yes, grade 9 to 12, there has been some reduction in syllabus here and there, and teachers are working on bringing the learning outcomes to the classroom. So I wouldn't say some days or some months or some chapters, the learning outcomes are better than the other chapters. So I wouldn't categorize it as, it's been the same or it's been better or it's been worse. I think it is a roller coaster kind of a thing as far as the learning outcomes are concerned, because we are working on the learning outcomes. We are trying to give them the skills that they require to learn. Now, this pandemic has also taught children that as much as teaching is a teacher's responsibility, learning is the student's responsibility. So it's like a mutual give and take relationship that has been established, I think, during the online teaching process. So I think that's about learning outcome.
And what would you say in terms of, fears and uncertainties that students could be having for now? Like, we know, we've seen the world, we've seen it for 30, 40 years, right? We've kind of, this will pass. Like, what are the fears and uncertainties, the questions you get from students, from their perspective?
I think that's one very, very important question that you have asked me. And above everything, that's the most relevant part of today's session and what the children are facing through: their mental health, their social well-being, their addiction to games and gadgets suddenly, their unintended exposure to explicit content sometime, and their physical well-being. all of these are at stake. Because having said about all the benefits of online teaching and learning outcomes, I think this is one aspect we cannot deny, that children are missing out on their social interactions. They're missing out on going out and having a physical activity or a game. They're missing out on a lot of things and they have no choice. Parents have no choice. I have 3 boys at my home and I see as a parent what they do. They do attend their online classes very, very regularly. But then after that, what? They sit before the TV, they pick up their mobile phones, and even though you don't want to encourage that, you really don't have a choice. So mental health and social well-being of a child is something which is at stake, and which each stakeholders involved in this education process must pay attention to, whether it is a parent or a teacher or a school. The emotional, the mental well-being and the social well-being of a child should definitely be taken into account.
Right. Great. That's kind of like great answer. I think, so you come across this word called new normal, right? Now, what is it a new normal? Is it really is something that you kind of expect it to be a new normal? And what role do you see would these processes that you developed in last 6 months or so, how will these kind of, if the new normal shifts back to some semi normal or something like that, how would these processes, will they play a part in the longer term? What will be what we invest in last 6 months, would it all be gone, or would it be like somewhere there? What will we be doing?
Very interesting, Deepthi. I think new normal, that word itself is a buzzword today. And
Right.
everybody likes to use it as it's a new normal. It's like a fad kind of a thing. But I'm not sure whether it is the new normal, and what is going to be in store for us 6 months down the lane, or one year down the lane. I can't say for sure. But I just know that we are learning every day. As individuals, we are learning every day. As entrepreneurs, we are learning every day. As students, as parents, as teachers, as the school community, and as generally, we are learning every day. And I sincerely wish that we keep close to our hearts and implement these learnings when we go back to our classrooms, and take some concrete learning of this pandemic and the whole teaching learning process when we go there, because it's going to be extremely difficult for you to say to the children, see, okay, you're not allowed to use your gadgets, or you're not supposed to refer that, because we have made them so comfortable with the gadget, and they are going through a very dynamic process. This online teaching learning has a lot of potential. The teachers can use it as a very dynamic platform, and they can collaborate with students across the globe, teachers across the globe. So I just wish that we remember the lessons that we have learned from this pandemic, and try to implement the best practices in our face-to-face classrooms. And we have a mixture of an online class and a face-to-face class as we go back to our classrooms. I think that would be the fair thing to do when we reopen as a school.
Right, right. And I wouldn't say like, because both you and I don't have a guess like when is this happening that children are going to be back to school. But just, uh, the whole Microsoft team thing that we talked about, right? The whole implementation process that went into it. I'm also sure a lot of software got made, a lot of online material got made to sort of, support this, because it's not like we didn't have it. We only had it in books and some notebooks or teachers' notes, like, hard copy notes or something. So a lot of content that got made. Uh, just this Microsoft team comes this year, and in 2021, if we are all back to our schools, what is the role the whole transition process or some of the processes that we developed will have? I mean, your guess, like, it's not, school may adopt a practice or choose to do it differently, but generally your guess to what will happen.
I think now the schools will go with a mixture of synchronous and asynchronous mode of learning. there would be definitely a lot of face-to-face classes, but there would also be small bits, chunks in modules of asynchronous learning, and there would be more focus on these experiential learning, as the CBSE says, and more of even integrating art into a subject like computer science. Earlier these art and sports, they were all considered to be different segments, has got nothing to do with the subjects that you're teaching. But then slowly we are trying to bring in different subjects into the subject that we are taking. If I'm a computer science teacher, I would like to incorporate some kind of art and some kind of music and some kind of drama and some kind of physical sport activities into what I'm teaching. Now, how I do that is absolutely a challenge right now, but I think that's the way that we're going to go ahead. And actually, speaking about the board examination classes, grade 10 and 12, we really have no clue of how it is going to be in 2021. So I just believe that this is not now there is a discussion about treating this academic year as a zero academic year. I really wish that this year is not treated as a zero academic year, because there has been a lot of effort that has been put to make sure that the teaching learning progress and the teaching learning takes place, and there are children and teachers who are involved in that. So I'm sure something beautiful will emerge out of this transition. We are all in that process of a transition. So by the end of this struggle and challenge, we'll all come out as probably a butterfly. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And is there a kind of, like, wish list you may have for any kind of authorities or government, or, which you or teaching community or your institute, or, institutes at a large would require over the next few months or years for whatever
Uh,
you know
Yeah,
has
I
happened?
think I think Deepti, the people who play a prominent role in drafting these policies and deciding what should happen in schools and classrooms and how should the learning happen, they should keep in mind the core thing about education. Okay, so education is all about learning, but also not just bookish learning. They should also learn about that the children are the main stakeholders in this education. So while we decide and design our education policies and come up with different variations and drafts, we should keep the children as the heart of education, whether they are going to be benefited, whether this can be implemented properly. And I know many schools who start their online classes from 8:45 and they go till around 2 to 3. How much effective is that? I need to ask those schools and those principals and the administrators, do you think your child is actually learning when you put him before a laptop or a mobile? Most of the children in India access their online classes using their mobiles, their smartphones. So how long do you think your child would be with you if you're organizing a class from 8:45 or 9 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the evening? So you need to consider, you need to go slow, you need to understand, and above and everything, you need to make sure that your child's mental and social well-being is intact. And you need to do something about that as the stakeholders of education. So that's my request to the governments, to the stakeholders of the schools. Please pay attention to their mental well-being, their physical health, and there is social emotional connections, because they will learn, their children, they adapt very fast. Okay, so learning will take place anyways, but it is, make sure that your children are healthy, your children are mentally fit, so that at any point of time they can cope up with what they have missed out. So that is what is a humble request to all those who are involved in this learning process.
Right. Yeah, that's a wonderful suggestion and recommendation. And so, one of the last questions, so Curious Times, we have been serving your institute now for some time, and we do a content and communication led activities. We serve you through news, child-friendly content, and we moderate all of the work that we do, and before it is presented to children, we build 21st century skills. Uh, what is that of Curious Times that you recommend the most, you love the most, and you recommend to your organization as well as to your students and their parents?
Yeah, this one I really want to make it a bit elaborative. So, see, learning today has changed. It's no more about traditional textbooks or traditional classrooms. It's more of personal goals, personal learning goals beyond your textbooks and beyond your classrooms. You need to connect beyond your borders. You have to keep yourself physically and mentally fit. You need to collaborate with people outside your school, outside your community. You need to get a global perspective, and you need to self motivate yourself. And I think Curious Times gives all of these to children. Not only just children, I think to parents, to the teaching community. You bring in a platform where you have very carefully curated content. Okay, it helps the child not only to develop, his current affairs, his knowledge of what's going around his world, and but bring out some sensitive topics and ask them to reflect on it, ask them to write about it or to draw about that particular topic and send it across, and you give them a platform to showcase their talent, which is incredible. I know many people who can write very well. I know students, I know teachers, and I know generally also a lot of people who write well, who draw well, but who have never got that platform to showcase their work, where other people would read what they have written and give their comments on how that article has been, what's good about it, what could have been better, right? So curious platforms is actually age appropriate, most important. Second thing is children get to know what's happening around the world. Third, they get a platform to showcase their talents, their, what they are good at. And I have seen Curious Times featuring articles and write-ups and stories and pictures of so many stakeholders. So I think that's a brilliant thing. I think I'm following Curious Times from the time that you have launched it. And I'm full of appreciation for the great work that you and your team is doing. It's an incredible thing, and I am quite happy to know that you're one of the leading knowledge providers as far as the school is concerned, as far as the children are concerned. So please keep up the good work. I think more and more people should be aware of this particular platform. They should join in their hands, to come to this platform and make use of this platform that has been provided to them. So I think that is what I believe about Curious Time. So I once again congratulate you and your team for bringing up such an innovative venture, because as teachers, one thing that we as also struggle is about current affairs, what's going on. I don't think many of us read, many of us listen to the news. There would be some fraction of teachers who are very good at this, but majority of us. So this is also one platform where the educators can also go and check out what is happening, and they can share with their children during their class teachers period or something. They can just pick up one of the videos from Curious Times and they can have a discussion on it with their students. So the possibilities are immense actually.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Those were like really kind words, and it will keep our team very motivated, because everybody out here has also been slogging through the pandemic. We've also been working remote, so the whole synchronization processes we also had to like revisit. And these are very nice comments, and we really, really appreciate, and we're very glad that many of your students have been participating a lot. And to your point, yes, there are lots of first time writers, poets, artists and all. And today we are releasing our next magazine, and you will see like there are 200 plus students who've got published over there. And it is as much immense pleasure for us also when we actually put it together, and when we receive calls from them saying when it is getting published. and we did reward the students with appreciation for the first quarter. It's been overwhelming experience for us and for our team, and for, I'm sure, with the students and the schools who've been kind of supportive in this whole process. And yes, definitely,
Right.
I mean, if everybody has kind of good words, then we'll inshallah do well, and we'll be able to have more and more children who come to our platform, and their work gets seen and distributed to a lot of other children. So I thank you, Shivi. I think I will kind of wrap this up. I am so happy, so kind of delighted to have you here. We had recently gone through your podcast, and we really liked. I mean the whole concept that you bring around. The So this has been a great experience to interact with you, and I wish you all the best. And we also wish, like, the pandemic gets over, we go back to the chalkboards, we carry the keyboards with us, and we carry our learnings next year. And all the very best to you, your institute, your congratulations to your teachers, and we wish you very, very happy Teachers Day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me
Yeah,
here. It's
I'll just click
a
a
pleasure to be.
picture. Yeah, just give me a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a part of our, which would go in, your interview. So we can click a picture. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful hosting you. Yeah, thanks.
Pleasure to have me.